So we are moved on to our reading lesson for today. So we are going to continue reading the 100 Dresses, and we are on chapter 3, which is on page 21, and it looks like this. You can see her sitting at her desk. So remember, we found out about the game that they made up where they make fun of her for saying she has 100 dresses, and they laugh and walk away. But Peggy doesn't realize that it's bullying, and Maddie's getting kind of annoyed with this game. So you should be on page 21, and make sure you have that ready and that you're following along. A bright blue day. Somehow Maddie could not buckle down to work. She sharpened her pencil, turned it around carefully in a little red sharpener, letting the shavings fall in a neat heap on a piece of scrap paper and trying not to get any of the dust from the lead on the clean arithmetic paper. A slight frown puckered her forehead. In the first place, she didn't like being late to school, and in the second place, she kept thinking about Wanda. Somehow, Wanda's desk, though empty, seemed to be the only thing she saw when she looked over to that side of the room. How had the 100 Dresses game begun in the first place? She asked herself impatiently. It was hard to remember the time when they hadn't played that game with Wanda. Hard to think all the way back from now, when the 100 Dresses was like the Daily Dozen, to then, when everything seemed much nicer. Oh yes, she remembered. It had begun that day when Cecil first wore her new red dress. Suddenly, the whole scene flashed swiftly and vividly before Maddie's eyes. It was a bright blue day in September. No, it must have been October, because when she and Peggy were coming to school, her arms around each other and singing, Peggy had said, "You know what? This must be the kind of day you mean when you say October's bright blue weather." Maddie remembered that because afterwards it didn't seem like bright blue weather anymore, although the weather had not changed in the slightest. As they turned from shady Oliver Street into Maple, they both blinked, for now the morning sun shone straight in their eyes. Besides that, bright flashes of color came from a group of a half-dozen or more girls across the street. Their sweaters and jackets and dresses, blues and golds and reds, and one crimson, one in particular, caught the sun's rays like bright pieces of glass. A crisp, fresh wind was blowing, swishing their skirts and blowing their hair in their eyes. The girls were all exclaiming and shouting at each one was trying to talk louder than the others. Maddie and Peggy joined the group in the laughing and the talking. "Hi, Peg. Hi, Maddie," they all greeted warmly. "Look at Cecil." What were they all exclaiming about was the dress that Cecil had on, a crimson dress with cap and socks to match. So crimson is a it's like a deep but yet bright red, okay? It was a bright new dress and very pretty. Everyone was admiring it and admiring Cecil. For long, slender Cecil was a toe dancer and wore fancier clothes than most of them. And she had her black satin bag with her precious white satin ballet slippers slung over her shoulders. Today was the day for her dance lesson. Maddie sat down on the granite curbstone to tie her shoelaces. She listened happily to what they were saying. They all seemed especially jolly today, probably because it was such a bright day. Everything sparkled. Way down at the end of the street, the sun shimmered and turned to silver the blue water of the bay. Maddie picked up a piece of broken mirror and flashed a small circle of lights edged with rainbow colors onto the house and trees and the top of the telegraph pole. And it was then that Maddie had come along with her brother Jake. Wanda, not Maddie. Wanda came along with her brother Jake. So think of this, though. They kind of gave us a setting here because they said it's shown on the telegraph pole. A telegraph was what they had before telephones, where they would send a message through a code, Morse code, and it would go to the person, a person miles away, and they would decode it and turn it into words, and that's how they would get news across quickly. So that kind of shows us a date without telling us the date, right? They didn't often come to school together. Jake had to get to school very early because he helped old Mr. Henney, the school janitor, with the furnace, or raking up the dry leaves, or other odd jobs before school opened. But today she must have been late. Even Wanda looked pretty in this sunshine, and her pale blue dress looked like a piece of the sky in summer. And that old gray knitted cap she wore. It must be something Jake had found. Looked almost jaunty. Maddie watched them absent-mindedly as she flashed her piece of broken mirror here and there. And only absent-mindedly she noticed Wanda stop short when she reached the crowd of laughing and shouting girls. "Come on, Maddie." "Come on," Maddie heard Jake say. "I gotta hurry." So now we have a page that's just full of pictures, okay? So we see this picture of the group of kids talking and laughing. We see some houses behind them. And we see Jake trying to walk away quickly, right? And this bright pink would represent Sissel in her new dress. So turning the page, don't get lost in the illustration. You can always go back and look, okay? So you're on page 28 now. "I gotta get the doors open and ring the bell." "You go the rest of the way," said Wanda. "I want to stay here." Jake shrugged and went on up Maple Street. Wanda slowly approached the group of girls. With each step forward, before she put her foot down, she seemed to hesitate for a long, long time. She approached the group as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarming happened. Even so, Wanda's mouth was twisted into the vaguest suggestion of a smile. She must feel happy too, because everybody must feel happy on such a day. So think about this, the first day of fall where the sun's shining really bright and there's all these new colors. That's the kind of day they're picturing, okay? As Wanda joined the outside fringe of girls, Maddie stood up too and went over close to Peggy to get a good look at Sissel's new dress herself. She forgot about Wanda, and more girls kept coming up, enlarging the group and all exclaiming about Sissel's new dress. "Isn't it lovely?" said one. "Yeah, I have a new blue dress, but it's not as pretty as that," said another. "My mother just bought me a plaid one in the Stuart plaid, one of the Stuart plaids. I got a new dress for dancing school. I'm going to make my mother give me one just like Sissel's." Everyone was talking to everybody else. Nobody said anything to Wanda, but there she was, a part of the crowd. The girls closed in a tighter circle around Sissel, still talking all at once and admiring her, and Wanda was somehow enveloped in the group. Nobody talked to Wanda, but nobody even thought about her being there. Maybe, thought Maddie, remembering what had happened next, maybe she figured all she'd have to do was say something and she'd really be the one of the girls. So, that's a little bit of foreshadowing. We know Wanda's about to say something. We don't know what yet, but she said something because she's standing in this large group of girls that just keeps getting bigger, and everyone's talking to each other, but no one's talking to Wanda, and they don't even recognize that she's even there. So Maddie's thinking maybe she just thought that if she at least said something, she would be a part of the group, okay? And this would be an easy thing to do because all they were doing was talking about dresses. Maddie was standing next to Peggy. Wanda was standing next to Peggy on the other side. All of a sudden, Wanda impulsively touched Peggy's arm and said something. Her light blue eyes were shining, and she looked excited like the rest of the girls. "What?" asked Peggy, for Wanda had spoken very softly. Wanda hesitated a moment, and then she repeated her words firmly. "I got 100 dresses at home." "That's what I thought you said. 100 dresses? 100? Peggy's voice raised itself higher and higher. "Hey, kids," she yelled, "this girl's got 100 dresses." Silence greeted this, and the crowd, which had centered around Sissel and her new finery, now centered curiously around Wanda and Peggy. The girls eyed Wanda, first incredulously, then suspiciously. 100 dresses, they said. Nobody could have 100 dresses. "I have, though." "Wanda has 100 dresses? Where are they, then?" "In my closet." "Oh, you don't wear them to school?" "No, for parties." "Oh, you mean you don't have any everyday dresses?" "Yes, I have all kinds of dresses." "Why don't you wear them to school?" For a moment, Wanda was silent to this. Her lips drew together, then she repeated stolidly, as though it were a lesson learned in school. 100 of them, all lined up in my closet. Oh, I see, said Peggy, talking like a grown-up person. The kid has 100 dresses, but she wouldn't wear them to school. Perhaps she's worried of getting ink or chalk on them. So again, this kind of shows us a date. They used ink and chalk to write. They didn't use pencil, even though we know that they did because she was sharpening her pencil at the beginning of this chapter. They used more ink and chalk, right? With this, everybody fell to laughing and talking at once. Wanda looked stolidly at them, pursing her lips together, wrinkling her forehead up so that the gray knitted cap slipped way down on her brow. Suddenly, from down the street, the school gong rang its first warning. Oh, come on, hurry, said Maddie, relieved. We'll be late. Goodbye, Wanda, said Peggy. Your 100 dresses sound beautiful. More shouts of laughter greeted this, and off the girls ran, laughing and talking and forgetting Wanda and her 100 dresses. Forgetting until tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, when Peggy, seeing her coming to school, would remember and ask her about the 100 dresses. For now Peggy seemed to think a day was lost if she had not had some fun with Wanda, winning the approving laughter of the girls. Yes, that was the way it had all begun, the game of the 100 dresses. It all happened so suddenly and unexpectedly, with everybody falling right in, that even if you felt uncomfortable as Maddie had, there wasn't anything you could do about it. Maddie wagged up her head and down. Yes, she repeated to herself, that was the way it begun. That day, that bright blue day, and she wrapped up her shavings and went to the front of the room to empty them in the teacher's basket. All right, so that's it for our reading for today. So I want you to go and get out your chapter 3 page, your novel packet, and look at chapter 3. The questions. We're going to talk about some of them because I know you're going to have some questions, so make sure you follow along. Number 1, if you don't have it yet, pause it, come back when you have it. Number 1 says a good title for the chapter could be Sissel's Red Dress, The Rainbow Mirror, How the Game Began, or Stuart Plaids. Okay? Look at number 2. It's at the top on the right side. Which word best describes the relationship between Wanda and Peggy? Bully and teased, rivals, pals, follower, and leader. So remember, this is between Wanda and Peggy, not Maddie and Peggy. Okay? Look at number 3. Read the passage from chapter 3. She approached the group as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. Even so, Wanda's mouth was twisted into the vaguest suggestion of a smile. She must feel happy, too, because everybody must feel happy on such a day. The word vaguest most likely means a laugh, indistinct, or that also means not clear. So if you're not sure what indistinct means, just right next to it, not clear, okay? Correct or strongest are your other options. Now look at number 4. Highlight the figurative word in the passage, the words in the passage of chapter 3, or of number 3, I'm sorry. So look at the passage on question 3. You're going to highlight the figurative language. I'm going to tell you what that language is. So get out your highlighter, pause it till you do, get it out, and then come back. The figurative language is, as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. I'm going to say that one more time. As a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. Which type of figurative language does this passage contain? Is it a simile, a metaphor, an idiom, or alliteration? Okay, so remember, we said an idiom is raining cats and dogs, right? It's not really raining cats and dogs. And then alliteration is if I said, Aunt Annie ate animal crackers and apples, right? That's a lot of a sounds, right? That's alliteration when you repeat a beginning letter. Based on this passage from question 3, Wanda must be feeling bold, weak, nervous, or boastful. So as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. Okay? Look at number 5. Read this line from chapter 3. Somehow Maddie could not buckle down to work. Which literary device does this line contain? Okay? So think of this. To buckle down to work. Did she buckle up her seatbelt to work? So think of what that might be. Okay? Explain what that line really means. So she didn't literally buckle up. So what did she do? Number 6, we're sequencing. So 1 through 6, you need to put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 next to each of those sentences to say which it is. Okay? So we're filling in the blanks for number 7. I will tell you this passage starts on page 22 at the bottom. Okay? So you're finding this passage and you're filling in the blanks. And then our last question. It says, how does the book's illustrations help the reader understand the story? So you are the reader, okay? How do the pictures and drawings that they put help you understand the story? You're giving your reason as to why that is. I want at least one complete sentence as to how those help you. All right? Great job today, guys. Have an awesome day, and make sure you turn in your work to the reading section on Google Classroom.